really know who Nas is. If he, son,
nah, but he know.
my son, my son can't tell you one Nas record. You heard? Like, let's keep it a buck here. I care about right now. I've been getting busy. I'm outside. I've been leading an example in a great way. You heard?
Yo, Jimmy.
I break that nigga 30 minutes.
If it was like Jim Jones, imagine putting a pen to paper to write about him. He was so nice. He was so nice about him. How did you do that?
Reached out to Nas to actually,
Whoa.
I'm doing my chicken head right now because I really want him to get on this record.
What I did for Nas probably never been done for him in his life. He's never been that viral at all, ever. Ever. He's never been talked about like this ever in his life.
Has Nas reached out to you?
You did. The last time he was in some shit like this where people were comparing was when him and Jay was beating on him.
Say that.
You heard? Now it's just like I'm where I'm at. I'm at the apex of what I do. You heard? So I'm talking about currently. You heard? Currently, nobody from my era really want to get busy or go to get into the booth with me right now, currently. This is a fact, Jack. You heard? If not, they would have stood up a long time ago and holler at me.
Jim Jones ain't just throwing little shots at Nas anymore. He's straight up threatening to pull up in real life. But the wild part? Nas barely even noticed him. When Nas did respond, he brushed Jim off like he was some random fan begging for clout. And that made Jim lose it all over again. This ain't your average rap beef. It's mostly Jim stuck on a grudge that Nas left behind ages ago.
Recently saw a clip on Instagram where a young kid was comparing you to Nas and saying that you got
Yeah, that's my young boy.
big hits.
He's wild.
Yo, he looked to you. He learned how to wear the BB Simon belt from you. He got his swag. Like, how crazy is that? Because in my era, you know what I'm saying, Nas is like a god.
In my era too. I mean,
so
well,
to be compared,
let me
that young kid out.
he was young and we loved that he loved Jim Jones. I want you to break it down.
Let's not get into that where we get into numbers and I gotta show you the statistics of what I've done. You heard to what other people was done. You heard them. You want to go to the Billboard entries, pull up Nas Billboard entries, then pull up my Billboard entries.
Listen, we can't compare the two. What I'm trying to tell you is
I want to go there. I want to go down the line now, because now we're going down the line. He's a rapper and I'm a rapper.
Listen,
let's go statistically.
It feels great.
No, but I want to go statistically, because when people be like,
I feel the same way. We all feel the same way.
And forget about the numbers. There's nothing that could, there's never, is me, putting me up against anybody, I'm taking me every time. Every time.
Supposed to. Okay,
every
but let me say something though, Jim.
In every category,
Jim,
This mess started more than 20 years back when the Diplomats were throwing slick disses at Nas on mixtapes in the early 2000s. Back then, they were spitting lyrical jabs, but Nas didn't even flinch. He kept it moving like it was nothing. Then, out of nowhere, an old clip popped back up online showing Nas clowning Jim hard. In that video, Nas basically said Jim wasn't even worth wasting words on. That clip should have been the final nail in this old feud's coffin. But nah, Jim couldn't let it die. After all these years, he's still salty as ever. He even went so far as to threaten he'd slap Nas if he ever saw him face to face. And now he's lashing out at anybody who dares question his claims about being more legendary than Nas. So when Jim started talking about pulling up on Nas for real, the internet lost its mind. Fans jumped all over Jim, roasting him for acting like some washed-up rapper starving for attention. And this time, his tough talk didn't just fizzle out. It blew up into a massive backlash that got everybody talking. Jim Jones just won't quit running his mouth about pulling up, but Nas is out here acting like he doesn't even exist. On the Bag Fuel podcast, Jim started talking slick again, bragging that his little comments made Nas go viral one more time. He swore up and down that Nas hasn't been trending like that since Ether dropped. Like, come on. Then Jim puffed his chest out even more, claiming that all the big names from his era are too shook to face him in the booth. He really said he's the absolute best from that whole generation, like he's some untouchable legend. But the circus didn't stop there. Jim pulled out a fat stack of cash on camera, waving it around like he was about to buy the crown. He dared Nas or anybody else to meet up and settle the score in person. He was talking big, acting like he was about to shut everything down for good. But here's the thing, nobody cared enough to respond. All Jim really did was show everybody how desperate this whole show looks. If you missed how this mess kicked off, it started earlier this month on the Joe and Jada podcast. Jim was explaining how his respect for Nas faded once he got inside the rap game. When Fat Joe brought up some kid who compared Jim to Nas on Instagram, Jim got all defensive. He clapped back saying folks should check his Billboard stats if they want to know why he always picks himself over anybody else, no matter who it is. But that Billboard talk turned out to be straight up nonsense. Billboard actually pulled the receipts to expose him. As a solo artist, Jim's only managed 2 Hot 100 hits, just 1 in the top 10. Meanwhile, Nas is sitting pretty with 27 Hot 100 entries, 2 top 10s, and on top of that, Nas has 27 albums that hit the Billboard 200. 6 of those.
You better check the podcast page. Now you better talk to
16.
Hey, this the biggest podcast you ever been on. This the biggest podcast you ever been on.
Even after getting caught.
Hold on. We off topic. Hold on.
Kept snowballing. Shannon Sharp.
When you get big, you get invited to Club Shay Shay.
This is what I do.
Nas get invited to Club Shay Shay. Jadakiss get invited to Club Shay Shay. You not on that level yet, bro.
It's for little young white girls. Chill out. Chill out. Don't play with me, bro. Chill out.
Off topic.
You dealing with the wrong one, bro.
Right here, bro.
I don't care nothing about nothing that you got to say, bro. You might as well take me off this shit, bro.
We here. You can't out
Leave
talk
me
me.
alone, bro.
You might can out rap me, but you can't out talk me.
Don't nobody want to go to Club Shay Shay. Nobody want to buy no VIP tickets to that shit. Nobody rushing to go to that shit.
Biggest podcast you ever been on.
Club Shay Shay.
Hey,
if you got a good
fortunate, you get
podcast.
an
At first, Jim tried to show Nas a little respect, giving him props for being an early influence. But in the same breath, he started questioning if that influence ever really lasted. He just couldn't keep it cool. It all kicked off when Shannon looked Jim dead in the eye and asked if he was sober when he said he's a better rapper than Nas. That's when Jim lost it and snapped right back, doubling down on his claim that he's not only better, but way more influential than the legendary Nas. Jim even dug up that old Dipset beef with Nas from back in the early 2000s. He bragged, saying, "We the ones that went wild on them boys," talking about their 2003 track, I Really Mean It. We'll break down that old feud soon. But first, Shannon wasn't about to let Jim skate by with all that big talk. Shannon told him straight up that Nas would outclass him lyrically any day. He said, "I don't know who told you that, though. You know you on that. You not seeing Nas." But Jim still refused to fold. He challenged Nas to step in the booth and prove he's really better if he wants all that respect. After popping off, Jim tried to play it cool again, telling Shannon he wasn't mad. But it didn't last. Things heated right back up when Jim accused Shannon and Ocho of bringing him on the show just to juice up their ratings. He even dared Shannon to meet him in the gym if he wanted to settle in another way.
I'm doing my
This is the
right
moment
now, 'cause I really want him to get on this record.
Fans were tearing him apart
Nah, but
online like
I
vultures
still
in
got a
fresh
bunch of
meat.
mutual friends and shit like
Meanwhile,
that.
Shannon
I
clapped
actually
back,
reached out to Nas.
basically
I actually
saying
sent
Jim
him the
needs
record.
their
I got a
podcast
response
way
from him, not
more than
personally,
they
but
ever
through the
needed.
friends.
But Jim wasn't ready to
Gave him
tap
my
out
number.
just yet.
I was told, like, he said he wanted to holler at me and shit like that.
He jumped on Instagram and kept running his mouth, challenging Shannon to face him one-on-one in the gym again. Jim even dropped a video of himself working out, trying hard to prove he was ready for any smoke. In the caption, he wrote, "Somebody tell Shannon Sharp, don't start ducking this challenge now. You gonna talk like a podcaster, or you gonna walk what you talk, cause my sneaker's tied. You already challenged me in front of everybody. Might as well finish the job." Champo Chachinko said he don't want to do it in public. "Let's do it in private. I know his rep as an athlete is on the line. Long as you the witness, we don't duck no challenges. Size don't matter where I'm from. Run it. Young David to all Goliaths." But man, Jim's desperate workout flex crashed and burned hard. Fans flooded his comments with savage jokes, calling him out for acting like he had wheelchair legs and clowning him for begging for attention when he's almost 50. They were calling him a cornball left and right. And as for Nas, yeah, he finally kind of responded. But not in the way Jim probably hoped. Before we get into that, you gotta see why calling this whole mess a beef feels like a stretch. It's really more like one dude yelling into the void while everybody else just shakes their heads. This whole mess is basically Jim Jones clinging to a one-sided grudge that never got any real traction. It all kicked off way back in 2003 when Cameron and the Diplomats, including Jim, were tossing shots at Nas on mixtapes and radio freestyles like it was their full-time job. They stayed talking reckless, but Nas didn't seem bothered in the slightest. Fast forward to 2005, and an old clip popped up where Nas laughed Jim off like he was just some loud background noise. In that video, Nas straight up said Jim wasn't even worth beefing with because nobody cared enough to get nervous over his bars. He made it clear Jim was never on his radar. But Jim took it personal, way too personal. About a year later, Nas dropped Hip Hop Is Dead, an album that rubbed a lot of rappers the wrong way. But no one got more worked up about it than Jim Jones. In an interview with So.com, Jim went on a wild rant saying, "Nas, I like Nas' new song. I'll still
40
slap
and
the
50
holy
year olds in
living
their
ish
panties
out of him,
because I said
but I like his
I'm
new
better
song.
than
It don't
Nas.
matter.
Look
That
at
song
you. Look at
is
you.
my
nobody-
And all in your
Ain't
all in
nobody
your
from
filth.
Dipset gonna take you over
Shannon,
Nas.
that's
Nobody
your
from the
truth.
Diplomats
That's
but
your
you.
truth. That's
I
your
got a
truth.
question.
So I can never.
Let Nas stick up for
I'll
itself
punch him
and
in
meet
his
me in a
mouth
booth
if
or
I have
something if we want to do something historical.
Well,
Nas say he don't do that no more. Nas say he don't do
Because
that.
he got
Just
$100
couldn't
million.
let it go.
He's a very
He kept
wealthy
popping
man.
up
You
with
heard
more
he's a very
trash
strong
talk.
businessman. He called a couple business flicks.
Hold on.
Jada
I'm
them cooked
rapping.
y'all.
I'm rapping at a high level. You better check my stats, bro. I will
we
run
not
circles
denying
around
that.
Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right
Nas
now.
got the game. Nas
Right
tied.
now, I will run.
Put his
I will
microphone
run.
up. Let me take my mic off.
Saturn. I will
Give me a
run
mic.
Saturn around Nas right now rapping. Everybody knows.
In October 2008, during an interview with Rhapsody.com, Jim fired off again, saying, "F Nas? I don't give an F about Nas. He's a rapper that just lost his pizzazz." Then Jim brought up a tense moment at a Ferrari dealership where he claimed he crossed paths with Nas and Dame Dash. He bragged, Dame seen him and was talking to him, trying to act like Nas never measured up to him, even back then. I was laid back on the couch laughing. He didn't know what move to make. I was staring dead at him. Then Dame started fumbling his words, trying to break the tension, but he was burnt out, not thinking about none of this petty drama. And me? I wasn't either. At least that's what Jim kept claiming. He swore Nas was never on his level, ever. But here's the funny part. Jim kept saying he didn't care about the so-called frivolous beef, yet he was the only one still holding on to it, tossing sneaky shots while Nas didn't even blink in his direction. After 2008, the noise died down. They stopped going back and forth in public. It almost looked like Jim had finally moved on. He even started giving Nas real respect, calling him a legend and admitting he tried to reach out for a collaboration. But Nas didn't even bother answering him. He just kept it pushing like he always did. And check this out. Jim openly confessed that Nas has always been one of his favorite rappers. He called him a major influence on his style. Even though Nas ignored that collab request, Jim still went out in public, basically begging for a track and calling Nas the GOAT. But fast forward to now, and Jim did a complete 180. He went from praising Nas as the greatest to acting like he barely knows the man, trash-talking his legacy like none of it mattered. So nobody was surprised when folks started roasting Jim all over again. Fans were saying whoever hyped him up to think he could out-rap Nas had to be his worst enemy, because that was never going to happen. Meanwhile, Nas kept floating above the drama, sitting in his Hall of Fame status without breaking a sweat.
If it
No
was like
extra
Jim
proof
Jones,
needed.
imagine
His
putting a pen to
catalog
paper to
speaks
write
for
about him. He was so nice. He was so nice about him. How did you do that?
Shut it all down.
What's the first sentence? What the fuck you waiting on, dude? I'm not anxious to hear the Jim Jones diss record.
Just to remind everybody who's way above this petty drama.
The niggas that used to have a nigga a little nervous was like B.I.G., Pop,
Right.
even Cannabis, like Eminem. The niggas used to have you like, if we go at it, dog, we gotta go hard. You know what I'm saying? But these niggas like a Jim Jones, like I mean, I respect you getting your money. You're like, exactly, right?
But MC-wise, you're not respecting his lyrical game right now.
I respect his hustle. I respect his hustle.
On June 21st, Nas posted a smooth photo on Instagram, chilling at dinner with LeBron James, Draymond Green, and a crew of powerful black CEOs. And the message for Jim was loud and clear. You can't sit with us. If you peeped the comments under Nas's post, fans were loving it. They were calling this the ultimate non-response to all the noise Jim's been making lately. People were dropping comments like, "This is how you silence a one-hit wonder," and "sometimes saying nothing is saying everything." And let's be real, anyone who thought Nas would stoop down to trade insults clearly doesn't know who they're dealing with. Did folks forget he literally has a bar that goes, "It's rare I listen to dudes who never been in my position. A caterpillar can't relate to what an eagle envisions." That line alone says it all. Nas is soaring way too high for any of this to touch him. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you're feeling the vibes. See you on the next one.